Advantages, disadvantages questions are challenging. To write a Band 9 answer, you must know what you need to do to make your score go up. And this is what I'm going to teach you in this video. We write a complete essay for an advantages, disadvantages question step by step, and I show you how to get a Band 9. The question is really hard, but you must know how to deal with difficult questions in IELTS Writing Task 2, because they come up all the time. By the way, guys, if you're going to take your IELTS soon, check out my IELTS materials. There, I teach you everything you need to score high. I show you step by step how to give high-scoring answers. And of course, we do many practice tests together, so you will feel confident for your test. You can find the link in the description below. And now, let's get started. The first thing to do when you start writing task 2 is decide what kind of question is being asked. As you can see, there is a statement that is a sentence or two long. It's about a topic that is common in the world today. This one has a word that might be new, globalization. However, if you read the statement carefully, you can see that the word is defined. Globalization refers to the increasing connection and dependence between countries, but some people are concerned that it could harm local communities or traditions. These questions are not trying to trick you with fancy vocabulary. They're trying to judge your English writing ability. After the statement is a question. This one is, do you think the advantages of globalization outweigh the disadvantages? You can tell the question type because the words advantages and disadvantages are in the question. Now you know that this is an advantages-disadvantages question. You also have to give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. The instructions further tell you to write at least 250 words, so we have to keep this in mind. I'm now going to show you how to write a Band 9 answer to this question. Before you start writing, you must take notes. It's really important to plan ahead so you stay focused while writing. IELTS test takers who just start writing tend to score much lower than a Band 9 because the essays are usually not well structured. For advantages, disadvantages questions, I draw a table like this with a plus sign on the left that stands for advantages and a minus sign on the right that stands for disadvantages. Now, I'm quickly going to write down 2 advantages of globalization. One advantage of globalization is that products and ideas can be shared anywhere in the world. So I write products, ideas. Another advantage is that when traveling, many things are familiar to us. For example, English is spoken in many places, which makes communication easier. So I write travel comfort. Now, let's quickly jot down a few disadvantages. One disadvantage for globalization is that countries may lose their culture, language, and food. Another disadvantage is that people can lose their jobs because projects may be moved to other places where they can be done more cheaply. So I write workers no jobs. You see that I don't worry about full sentences. I just put down enough to remember what I want to write. Notice that I give advantages and disadvantages. You have to include both in your essay. Now that you see the list, you can decide whether there are more advantages or disadvantages. I don't have a strong opinion, but I must include one in the essay. So I'm going to say that the advantages of globalization outweigh the disadvantages. Now, let's start writing the essay. We will start with the introduction. There are 2 things that are important here. First, you have to paraphrase the statement given in the question. And second, you must give your viewpoint. Otherwise, the examiner will not know what your opinion is. So let's write the first sentence of the introduction. This is called the background statement because it tells the reader what your essay is about. Some people are concerned that globalization harms local communities and traditions because there is too much connection and dependence between cultures. If you compare this sentence with the question, you can see that I change a few things, but I also use words from the question. I put the second part of the sentence first, and the first part of the sentence comes second. Changing the sentence structure is a kind of paraphrasing. It shows the IELTS examiner that you have understood the question and are not just copying down words that you don't understand. But you can also see that I use many words from the question, such as globalization, local communities, traditions, connection, and dependence. Why am I not paraphrasing these words? Because there is no reasonable way to paraphrase here. In IELTS writing, it's super important to paraphrase, but you must only paraphrase words that can be paraphrased. If it's not possible and you try to paraphrase nevertheless, your band score will go down. Next, I'm going to state my opinion. This is also called the thesis statement, and this is where I start using my template. Templates are great because they help you write a high-scoring answer. They give you sentence starters which include advanced vocabulary and organize your answer. This helps you get a better band score. When writing your answer, you simply write down the sentence starter and then you finish the sentence with ideas of your own that fit the topic you were given. To get all the templates you need, click on the link below and check out my IELTS materials. You can find templates for all IELTS writing tasks there. So for all charts in task 1, such as pie charts, line graphs, diagrams, and so on, and all questions in task 2. For example, agree-disagree questions, advantage-disadvantage questions, and much more. Now, let's write the second sentence using the sentence starter, in my opinion, from my template. In my opinion, advantages, such as the exchange of products and ideas, outweigh the disadvantages. As you can see here, I use high-scoring vocabulary, such as introduce as an example and exchange is an advanced word. It's super important to state your opinion here. You must give your viewpoint and show whether you think that there are more advantages or disadvantages, because the question asks you to do this. If you don't do this, your score will go down. A really common error is giving reasons for both sides without saying your opinion. Another common error is only giving information about the one side you like best. You need to contrast the other side too. Now, let's go on with the first reason for my opinion. The question says, give reasons for your answer. So this is what we're going to do now. It's important to use a new paragraph when you state your first reason to show the IELTS examiner that now comes a new idea. So make sure that there is some space between the introduction and your first reason. Again, I remember my template and pick a suitable sentence starter. I will choose the primary benefit of. This is a great sentence starter because primary is advanced vocabulary, which will increase my band score. I'm going to write, the primary benefit of globalization is that products and ideas can be shared anywhere in the world, especially in times of need. This exchange can help solve problems in all aspects of life, from teaching new surgical techniques to providing food for communities suffering from famine. I structure this in a classic essay format, starting with a very general statement. Products and ideas can be shared anywhere in the world, especially in times of need. The next sentence also starts really general. This exchange can help solve problems in all aspects of life. I use awesome vocabulary and grammar here. Further, can be shared and can help solve are conditional tenses. They show that something is possible, but not 100% sure to happen. Here you can see that you can change your verbs to make interesting sentences. You can also see a lot of advanced vocabulary here, especially surgical techniques and famine. Always remember to use advanced vocabulary because this will make your band score go up. However, if you stop here and go on to your next point, you will probably not get an IELTS band score over 5. Why? Because there is no example. Have a look at the prompt. It says, give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. That means that you must give examples. If you don't, you have not completed the task. In other words, don't just give general claims. Therefore, I continue that sentence with more specific information, from teaching new surgical techniques to providing food for communities suffering from famine. But that is not really any example or reason from my experience, right? If you stop here, you haven't really completed the task fully. So I'm going to add a very specific case I know about. We pick a useful sentence starter from the template, which is for example. For example shows that you're about to give an example, so the IELTS examiner knows what comes next. This is great signposting. Here you can see why good sentence starters are so important. They structure your essay and tell the IELTS examiner what comes next. For example, television coverage shows that some children in Africa do not have enough to eat, so people from my country are sending donations to alleviate the problem. Now, let's talk about the second advantage. Another reason that globalization is advantageous is that people can feel comfortable seeing things they recognize wherever they travel. Another reason that globalization is advantageous is that it clearly shows that the idea of feeling comfortable when traveling is good. Also notice that I use advanced vocabulary here: television coverage, donations, and alleviate. Always remember to show the IELTS examiner that you have a wide vocabulary, because this will make your band score go up. Now, let's give a personal example for this advantage. I like to visit new places, and the fact that English is spoken makes it easier to communicate with people wherever I go. I can find my way using English signs and eat food that I am familiar with. Here, I show the IELTS examiner that I know advanced grammar. I write is spoken, which is the passive tense. Make sure you use different tenses in your essay, because this way you demonstrate that you know complex grammar. It's essential that you end this first body paragraph with a concluding sentence. So I remember my template, which has a great linking word to start the concluding sentence. Hence, this is a very advanced word to conclude something. I'm going to write, hence, the connectedness of globalization helps solve international problems and makes people more relaxed. Here you can see that I use a different word for connection that is used in the prompt. I say connectedness. This sentence sums up this paragraph nicely. If you find this video helpful, hit the like button. Also, comment down below whether you want more sample answers for IELTS writing. Write more if you want more. If you want me to talk about something else, tell me your video wish in the comments. Now, let's continue writing our essay. We will move on to the disadvantages of globalization. The first disadvantage is about losing one's culture. Before we start writing, let's pick a high-scoring sentence starter from the template. There is, however, an obvious disadvantage in that this is a score booster for several reasons. First, I use the linking word however and put it in the middle, which shows that I know how to write more complex sentences. Second, I don't only write disadvantage, but obvious disadvantage, which demonstrates that I have a broad vocabulary. Let's write this sentence. There is, however, an obvious disadvantage in that some of a culture's individuality is lost. Individuality is very advanced vocabulary, and is lost is in the passive tense. This way, I show that I know complex grammar. Next, we need to give an example for this disadvantage, because the question asks us to give examples. We have already used for example for the first example, so now we use for instance from the template to show that we have a broad vocabulary. It's very, very important to use different sentence structures and vocabulary in your essay. You need to show off your grammar skills, paraphrase ideas, and make sentences different lengths. I'm going to use different sentence structures in this sentence to show the examiner that my English is advanced. In Japan, for instance, people used to wear kimono. You can tell this is an example because I used the linking words for instance, but I put it in the middle of the sentence rather than at the beginning. This will increase my score because I show that I know where to place it in the sentence. Let's continue writing. Now they tend to wear business suits. I heard that most young people do not know how to tie the complex sash, so a lovely tradition is at risk. As you can see, my example has 2 short sentences and 1 long one. Now they tend to wear business suits is very short. That makes the point very strong and abrupt. You focus on the disadvantage that business suits have replaced kimono. In other words, the shortness of the sentence highlights my concern about globalization. Then I go back to a longer sentence. You can see two clauses here joined by so. I heard that most young people do not know how to tie the complex sash, so a lovely tradition is at risk. If you use different sentence structures like this, you demonstrate that you know advanced grammar, and this will improve your IELTS writing band score. Now, let's state the second disadvantage. My template has a great sentence starter for this. A further major issue is that major is a great word because it's advanced vocabulary. So let's write. A further major issue is that workers can lose jobs if projects are sent overseas to places where they can be done more cheaply. And of course, we also have to give an example of this disadvantage. So let's do this. One such situation is that many call service jobs that used to be filled by Americans are now being handled by companies in India and the Philippines. Next, we have to write a concluding sentence for this paragraph. I use a linking word from my template for this. Accordingly. Accordingly, governments should implement policies to prevent these disadvantages from becoming more serious. There is a lot of high-scoring vocabulary in this sentence. Implement, prevent, and serious. Finally, you have to write a conclusion for the whole essay. I picked the sentence starter in sum from the template to show the IELTS examiner that this is my conclusion. First, let's write a sentence that sums up the advantages and disadvantages in the essay. In sum, while globalization can threaten some cultural traditions and jobs, it also allows people to share valuable ideas and products. Threaten and valuable are great words to showcase your vocabulary. Now you have to state your opinion again. Therefore, I feel that the advantages, such as helping others in times of need, outweigh the disadvantages of globalization. This way, I answer the question precisely. I say that the advantages outweigh the disadvantages of globalization. Now, there are three important points I want to mention here. First, it's important to balance the paragraphs. This means you should write about the same number of words for both advantages and disadvantages. If you focus too much on one side, you look biased, like you haven't thought through the argument carefully. The body paragraphs in my essay look about the same length. Actually, the advantages are 146 words and the disadvantages are 117 words. That's quite close. The advantages are a bit longer because I'm writing that advantages outweigh disadvantages. I use more words to convince the reader that my view is best. That's a very little detail that many professional writers use when trying to persuade an audience. Second, make sure that you have written over 250 words. The instructions tell you to write at least 250 words. That means over 250 words. You will lose points if you write less. On the other hand, you don't have to write hundreds of words more. If you write too much, you're probably including too many unrelated details. The examiner will not understand your main point if you go off topic. My essay is 339 words. It's a good length since there are lots of complex issues to discuss. I usually don't write much more than 350, as you can lose the main idea in a really long essay. Finally, take time at the end to proofread your writing. If you correct mistakes, you can increase your score. Look for spelling errors and make sure that sentences are capitalized with periods at the end. Also, look for words that repeat. Then ask yourself if you can substitute pronouns or paraphrase them. It's really worth proofreading your essay because such little details can greatly improve your band score. Lastly, let's sum up what you have to do to write a Band 9 answer for an advantages-disadvantages question in IELTS Writing Task 2. First, take notes so you can write a well-structured essay. Then decide whether the advantages outweigh the disadvantages or whether it's the other way around. Write an introduction, use separate paragraphs for advantages and disadvantages, and write a conclusion. Don't forget to state enough advantages, disadvantages, and examples to support your opinion. Divide your essay into paragraphs so the structure is clear and make sure you balance the paragraphs. Additionally, use lots of different linking words, advanced vocabulary, complex grammar, and varied sentence structures. Use templates to make sure you use high-scoring sentence starters that fit the question, a broad vocabulary, and the correct structure. To get all the templates you need, click on the link below and check out my IELTS materials. Finally, make sure that you write over 250 words and don't forget to proofread your essay. That's it, and that's how to write a Band 9 answer for an advantages, disadvantages question in IELTS Writing Task 2. I hope you liked this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you're notified when the next video comes out. Also, share this video with your friends so they can improve their IELTS writing score too. See you in the next video!